Yo, check 1, 2. Let us know if we are good in the chats. Welcome on in. First edition, man, the debut of a new Sixers weekly show. You guys asked, we delivered every week, breaking down the Sixers, talking about the week of games, previewing the next week of games, analyzing everything from head to toe with this team. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be a wild season for the 76ers. And we almost thought that they were in jeopardy already. We'll get to that. We'll talk about Paul George. We'll talk about Joel Embiid, the 76ers. Let us know how we sound in the chat. But welcome on in, man. This is Sixers Therapy. I'm happy to be up here with a star-studded lineup. Eastwood, Sean Bernard, Miles Johnson, and your boy RB. Let's freaking go, man. Guys, thank you for tapping in, man. And I'm pumped to talk with you guys every single week. Eastwood, Sean, Miles, how are we feeling?
Feeling great.
Deep breath. Deep breath.
I want to start it off with a statement, actually. I think each show we should start with like a top statement and then agree or disagree with it and just kind of, lead it off that way. So my statement to you guys, agree or disagree, and drop it in the chat too. It looks like we have all the chats lined up now, is the 76ers never fail to get in their own way. Agree or disagree? I'm going to give it to Miles first.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, like the season ain't even start. And we're talking about Joel Embiid not playing back-to-backs. Paul George, thank you, God. It wasn't no structural damage. I know we're going to talk about that. But it's not about the Knicks. It's not about the Celtics, the Cavs, Magic, Bucks, whoever. It's about the Sixers getting in their own way. So I completely agree, RB. I completely agree.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that one either, that there's a pretty strong track record for this organization, tripping over itself in more ways than one. But I do think that of recent, specifically this summer and this new regime, since Daryl Morey has kind of set things, I guess, in place within this organization, I do think they're trending in a much better direction. And I feel probably the most stable that the Sixers organization has been probably in my entire lifetime. So I guess moving in the right direction, but certainly not going to argue with your statement, RB.
Eastwood?
Yeah, we did something in a past life, man. The Sixers did something in a past life because it just doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what we do. Doesn't matter who we sign. It's just something. We're always on it. We're always teetering on the edge, man. We're basically like, as a Sixers content creator, we're basically injury update people first and game reaction people second. So we're even starting the season. We got injury updates literally before the season starts.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating, man. I mean, we're going through preseason action. We're playing Trae Young. He's flopping all around, and we have to worry about Paul George potentially missing time. Now, I will say, I'm getting real sick and tired of the Twitter doctors. Like, immediately, Paul George twists a knee, and we have, John Chow and Brian Sutter and, 50 different accounts. I mean, how did these guys, do they sit at their laptops? No offense, like, congrats to them. They have great channels. They do great work. But do they sit at their laptops on a game night and just wait for somebody to get banged up? I feel like these guys get a video out in 12 and a half minutes, and then everybody starts to, pile back to us saying, well, did you see the new video? PG is going to be out 3.5 months, or Joel's going to be out, for 5 weeks. Like, how do they know? PG didn't even get to the locker room yet. That's my little annoyance with the Twitter doctors.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair game, and they're everywhere, by the way. That it felt like this was kind of like once a cool lane where guys have kind of carved out a niche, and now there's a million of them giving different takes and breaking down like it's a Zapruder film, different angles, all these type of things here. So definitely a little bit overkill. I think the Twitter doctors have jumped the shark a bit, but nonetheless, the biggest takeaway for me here is Paul George, it's just a bone bruise, man. We can have a sigh of relief. The season is not over. The championship parade can still be on.
One guy yesterday said, what do you say? An average of 6.4 days is the time to be out. Like, who comes up with that stuff, man? All right.
And I clicked on his page, and it was like some kind of sneaker website, first of all, and then like he's a sports scientist or something. And I'm like, we're just I mean, but yeah, it's just it's new age clickbait. That's what it is. They're basically they know what people are searching and when they're searching for it. They know as soon as somebody gets hurt, a million people are searching for it on Google. And if it pops up, doctor gives his opinion on knee right here, everyone's like, oh, let me hear what the doctor said. It's easy. And they that quickly, yeah, he didn't even really put any information in the video. He was just trying to take it. They're just trying to take advantage of all of the search traffic on certain things. It's 100% clickbait. He was like, he could have ended his career or he could play next week.
Yeah,
We
literally.
don't really know, but here's a 3D rendering of a knee with some ligaments, and I'm going to show you. Like, it was nothing.
Yeah, it's been crazy, man. But speaking of what Sean said, so the report comes out today. Paul George, a bone bruise, no structural damage to his left knee, and will be reevaluated in 1 week. Now, immediately my brain goes two ways. One, I'm happy PG will be back. He might miss the season opener. If you got a problem with that, wipe your damn tears and let's move on. All right. I mean, I'd rather him miss 2 games than miss 3 months. Like this team needs Paul George. But I got a little bit in the back of my head now because every time I hear reevaluated in approximately 1 week or 2 weeks or a month, didn't that happen to Rocco last season? And then Nurse came out and said, there's no hope at the end of the tunnel. There's no light at the end of the tunnel for Robert Covington. We never saw him again. So what do you guys think, man? Miles, get in this convo. What do you think about Paul George? Is he going to be back in the next couple of weeks? Are we saved or is there something lingering?
Do I think he'll be back by October? No. November? Yes. But what this tells me is that what we have to hope for, because the inevitable is coming. Like throughout the season, I believe like Joel Embiid's going to be in and out. Paul George is going to be in and out. Tyrese Maxey, knock on wood, he'll be the constant factor that will be in the lineup game in, game out. Well, what we can hope for is that just by playoff time, that's where Joel Embiid and Paul George, they're healthy. I know people like, I'm pessimistic. That's a long shot. No way that happens. But ultimately, I think it's tough. It's tough because we got two guys with like injury history, and there's a reason. Like, I'm not like for people to be pessimistic. I'm not gonna be like you're wild or to feel that way. You're definitely valid to feel that type of way. But what we can hope for is at least by February, by March, by April, that this trio is together. That's what we gotta hope for. Like, it's not about how many games. This is about like, can they get just like several games strung together going into playoff time? That's my hope. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you're right. Like, they have to get in a rhythm at some point. I mean, they've never played with each other. I mean, Maxey and Embiid, but now you have a bunch of these tough role players. You have Paul George. That brings a complete different dynamic. I mean, Maxey, PG, they've been meshing well, but now when you put Joel Embiid on the floor, it changes the entire way you play offense. So, yeah, I think they got to get on the floor together, man, and I hope it's sooner rather than later.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, like I think one of the advantages of Paul George specifically is he's about as plug and play of an NBA player as you can get. That I truly feel his skill set is a guy that you can put on any of the 30 teams and he finds a role pretty quickly. So I'm not as caught up in kind of the amount of reps. I also think there is kind of this double standard that Sixers fans love to roll with of the concrete. We need a plan for pain management, making sure these guys aren't getting injured. And then when we actually roll out things like Joel Embiid not playing the back-to-back, then that's uproar too. So we can't have it both ways with this. And I kind of look at it as a really good thing that there is this organizational plan, that it feels like for so long with Joel specifically, the plan has been basically, let's hope he doesn't get injured and just roll him out there as often as possible. I like that there's some proactive steps, that it is precautionary, not reactionary, not adjusting to what happens, that there's a forward-looking plan. So I am hopeful for that. Miles is absolutely right that it all comes down to when we look ahead several months in the future and the playoffs are on the horizon of how healthy are these guys and can they have a full playoff run together. But to me, we're gonna have to just sit there and bear through a couple regular season games. These guys aren't on the floor together, probably more so than not. I don't think it's gonna be a ton of workload for the trio, all three of the stars to be on the floor together. But that's the deal that they made, and I still think that's kind of the proper path for the Sixers team.
Yeah, listen, it definitely does make me nervous because this is an organization still run by the same people that, over the course of the entire process, there would never be a clear, hey, he has this injury and he's going to be out for this long. It's always been, hey, he's going to be reevaluated in 3 weeks or whatever. And then the reevaluation would come and they'd be like, hey, we flew him out to LA to see us, the best knee doctor in the world. He'll be reevaluated in another month and a half. And it's just like it went. The Markelle Fultz thing, I think, scarred me, man. And then we were watching him like shoot free throws in the background at practice. We're like, there he is. He's shooting the ball. That's him right there. Like a mythical creature or something. Dude, it was, and I don't feel like other teams and other sports, like medical reporting is like as bad as it has been on the Sixers organization. Or maybe it is, but another thing too, what Sean just said about the medical staff, people are like people will blame the medical staff for players getting hurt, and they'll be like, "We have the worst medical staff in history. Our players are always hurt." I'm like, the medical staff didn't injure anybody. They don't.
Yeah.
There's not like you show up in the morning and do ACL workouts so you don't get hurt. Like that makes no sense. It's just totally random, and the Sixers just they something's going on. Something bad always happens. But this could have been a New York Jets Aaron Rodgers situation, and we just got to be happy that it wasn't, because if it would have been like torn ACL, we would have been like, that's the most Sixers shit ever. That would have been the most Sixers thing ever. So we skated by this time. Maybe they're finally giving us a break, but they had to still test us. They had to still put it there.
This fan base has been subject to pain. Shout out to Asia Roberson, member for 45 months, says RB DJ MJ sorry about the Phillies. And then we had a $5 super chat from Brian Pumper. He says, not so fast, fellas. PG had a similar bone bruise hyperextension 2 years ago on the Clippers, and he did not play for 2 months. Brian, shout out to you, man. Appreciate you always tapping in. Look, I got a problem with
Is that true?
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. I also saw there was something when he was with the Thunder, a similar kind of injury as well. So it's like he does have repeat knee issues. It just is what it is to an extent. But I will say, like, for the bone bruise specifically here, that basically it comes down to pain tolerance. So the good news here is it's not a structural thing. Now, how that plays itself out from here, we will find out. But I guess, like, I still will rest easy thinking, like, it's about how painful this is and what he's dealing with versus the actual structure of the knee, which I do think is still the most important takeaway.
And again, Sean, what you said about him being plug and play, like it's a good type of player, because if you do lose him for 2 months, he is the kind of player that can just get on the floor and play basketball. There's not like a whole Paul George system that has to be run or anything. He can catch and shoot. He can shoot off the dribble. He can do all the things. So yeah, it is what it is.
Just to add on to that, like, all we're asking for Paul George is to be better than Tobias Harris. That's all we asking. That's all we asking. And we already know Paul George is miles better than Tobias Harris. What he was giving us in the playoffs was nothing. And with Joel Embiid on one leg and Tobias Harris giving us a goose egg, we took the Knicks to 6 games in the playoffs. So all we need is Paul George to give us what Tobias Harris did and more, which he will do. All it is about health. That's all it is about health at this point.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
Paul George attempted 8 3-pointers in the first half of Sixers basketball that he played it. Like, think about that. Like, just replacing that with Tobias Harris with that right there, that volume of 3-point shooting, and just like the off the dribble stuff. I can't like overstate how much like more aesthetically pleasing and just better at every basketball skill that we've seen from Paul George compared to a guy like Tobias.
Yeah, when you're finally watching a wing that catches the ball in the perimeter and he's about to create a shot and you feel like something good is going to happen. It's been the other way for so long. It's like he'd get the ball, you'd be like, oh, damn, here we go, Tobias ISOs. And if something good would happen, you'd be like, okay, but it still felt a little bad, but it went in. Yeah, it's a lot better. Paul George can give you 10 points with his eyes closed. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bar's not really set high. I mean, all of us on this panel did the same amount of work as Tobias in the elimination game. I
Maybe
mean,
more.
0 points. I mean,
Yeah.
that's almost impossible to do, man, if we're being completely honest, especially for a max player. I mean, 0 points. How hard is it to put the ball in the hoop one time? I mean, it's almost like you're trying at that point.
Physicality. He back as soon as it got physical, he quit, man. And some players just can't hack it, dude. The Knicks were just shoving him off the 3-point line, and he gave up. That's what was happening.
I think the most frustrating part for me, and obviously we've talked about this over the years, is you miss opportunities and it's really hard to get back to the moment. And I feel like if we had Paul George on this roster last year, the team is in the conference finals, at least at a bare minimum. Maybe they get beat by the Celtics, but like how many times are we going to get to the moment and come up short? And, other fan bases will say that it's excuses and this and that. This is the first year in Joel Embiid's career, outside of 30 games in his rookie year, that he hasn't played with either Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris. What other star is going through that? What other team has been subject to their entire roster being strapped by a really bad contract? And we're not talking about like one bad year of this. We're talking about 9 years between these guys. I mean, that's just you just can't do much at that point.
Yeah.
That's why even watching Paul George in the first preseason game is so refreshing. The guy just takes the ball, creates his own shot, and knocks down a mid-range J. Like we haven't even seen that. We've been subject to Robert Covington and Danny Green and all these other guys playing the three. Come on, man.
Dude, it's just so much Sixers luck that we would get to the top of the draft after drafting Joel, and there'd be a player who's 6'11", runs like a unicorn, and looks like the next iteration of Magic Johnson. It just looks like such a rare physical specimen that you had to take him at number one, even if you were like, it might not actually fit with the center that we think is going to be great. We're forced to take him based on the upside alone. So, and he turns out the way he turns out. And, I remember Chauncey Billups saying at the time, I'll take Brandon Ingram. I wouldn't take Ben Simmons. And we thought he sounded crazy.
That's because we never saw a player in NBA history to that point who had every physical gift and would not shoot a basketball. I mean, we've talked about it before. Like, what's the first thing you do when you go to the basketball court? You have your slides on, you pull up and you shoot from 55 feet. Like there's something that was there mental. And, he's back in the game. NBA Central's posting Ben Simmons stat lines through one quarter.
Man. Time to get a new contract.
You got crossed up by Kuzma. I mean, come on, Ben. You got to hang it up, man.
Time to get a new contract. Not to go on a whole Ben Simmons tangent, but what do you guys see like for his next contract? Like realistically, I mean, you know what I mean?
I don't see a next contract.
So unpredictable, really.
I think he retires after this year.
Probably it's going to be a vet minimum. There's going to be some team like the Suns, Magic. I don't know, somebody who's like, we're a fringe contender. We could use a playmaker. We're fantasizing off of what Ben did in 2017, 2018, whatever. But we all know, us in Philly, we know that was gone. It was funny, though, when like that James Harden trade happened and we had the Nets fans that were like, oh, look at y'all. We're going to get Ben Simmons. Philly's terrible. The fans are terrible. And we're like, we were trying to tell you guys like who this guy is. And, everybody's seen it now. But it's going to be one team that's like, we could change him. It's like,
the Charlotte Hornets, man. The island of misfit toys, man. The Charlotte Hornets.
Let me ask you this. Does Ben Simmons accept the contract with the Charlotte Hornets? I would put my vote on no.
Or the Wizards. The Wizards or the Hornets.
Sacramento Kings is my prediction. I feel like they're weird enough and out in LA, and like he'll get a minimum. Yeah, I could see the Kings taking a shot at it. And by the way, like from the NBA Central clips that are out there, like I honestly feel sad to an extent that dude is just not what he once was. Like physically, there is not the burst that he once had. It's clear that like beyond all the mental stuff, which is I think in all of our eyes kind of the downfall of a lot of this, like physically he's just not the same guy. And particularly when you're a high level athlete, when you take as much time off as Ben has, and of course injury is playing a role with it, it's really tough to just pick it up and get it back. And I do think like everyone should look themselves in the mirror and just recognize that the Ben Simmons we once saw is not coming back.
No,
it's the same thing. Like if you look at Deshaun Watson right now, like he's
Bro,
absolutely washed, and he didn't play for a season. And I
Yeah.
think Ben Simmons thought he was making a power move when he sat out, and you didn't realize that the rest of the competition was on an
Getting
incline,
better.
and he was just kind of falling down the hill. So,
I 100% agree, and I think might be a little bit off topic, but this might actually look better for a guy like Michael Jordan, because it's like, all right, you actually took 18 months off, got back, and won a chip. Like Ben Simmons and Deshaun Watson are showing you can be a very good player. Deshaun Watson was better at his peak than what Ben Simmons was. And even we're seeing like, all right, yeah, for both of them, it's a mental thing too. But it's also like you can't leave a sport for a year, a season, etc., whatever, and then expect just to get back to your old form. What Michael Jordan did, that's insane. Like that's insane. Like, I don't know, man.
yeah, it's unbelievable, man. I want to talk about Joel Embiid as well. Let me hit these super chats. Aaron says the Sixers need a witch doctor and an exorcist because the team is cursed with injuries. Ryan says, I'm going to freak out the first time PG dribble crossover, blows by defender, pulls back for no reason for a jumper. Still better. And then we have another one? I don't think so. I don't see another one.
I mean,
Yeah.
from what I've seen so far, the dribble crossover into a jump shot has looked amazing.
good.
Probably
Yeah.
because we haven't seen it in a Sixers uniform at that position for literally ever. I mean, like the closest thing we've ever had to a real like 6'8" wing is Andre Iguodala.
Yeah.
And he can't shoot at all until that one Warriors season somehow. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, we've been scarred 100%. Speaking of scarred, I want to talk about Joel Embiid because this article came out. We all talked about it a few days ago, but Tim Bontemps reported that according to Daryl Morey, Joel Embiid and maybe even Paul George, we don't know how that'll factor now, will not play a lot of back-to-backs. Joel may never play a back-to-back for the rest of his career. The guy's 30 years old. It's now or never for the 76ers. But kind of reflecting back on what Sean said earlier, and I want to get your guys' opinion. So let us know if you agree or disagree in the chat. I'm getting tired of people having the double narratives around Joel Embiid. So let me get this straight. You're mad at him because he doesn't show up in big games and he ducks opponents. But then you're mad at him because he wants to manage his health and get to the playoffs healthy. But then you're mad at him because he can't stay healthy in the playoffs and he's dropping 50 on one knee. What is it? Like, which one is it? I think there is so much hate right now on Joel Embiid. Not that all of it is not warranted, but I think he's in that cycle of I'm the next superstar that hasn't won, and people are just going to rip me no matter what until I win a championship. Do you agree or disagree? Like, people are out of line right now with their Joel Embiid criticism after the Olympics. All of it combined. Joel is the most hated player in sports right now. Eastwood.
Joel is the most hated player in sports. Yeah, the reason other fan bases hate Joel Embiid is because he shows up and drops 50 on everybody, you know. And yeah, in the playoffs, he's been hurt. I mean, he did average 30, 10, and 6 against the Knicks off a knee surgery. But other teams hate him so much because they can't, when he's healthy, he's completely unstoppable. And they have to show up to their own arena and watch this guy either shoot 21 free throws because you have to foul him every time he's in the paint, or watch him drop 70 on Wembanyama. Like, they hate him because there's no answer for what he does when he's healthy. That's other fan bases absolutely hate watching him play basketball because of that. And you know, the injury stuff with not playing back-to-backs, I think Sixers fans are just tired of hearing anything about Joel Embiid's knee. You know what I mean? Like, we watched him play in the Olympics and he looked very slow. And then a couple months off, and then we're like, oh, he's not ready for the preseason because of knee management. And we're like, oh my God, here we go again with the knee updates. You know, I think we were under the impression that we were going to come into the season ready to go. And so it kind of caught everyone off guard. But yeah, I mean, we were saying the end of last season or right when the summer started, let's play him 40 games this upcoming season. I mean, who cares? And
Yeah.
and he is another player that is just so good. No matter what the system is, when he gets on the floor, it's going to revolve around him, and he's going to. And so, I guess we'll see. But on the negative side too, it hasn't really mattered what angle we take. We load manage him, he tears his meniscus and his thumb ligament and breaks his face. And we don't load manage him and he tears his meniscus and so I don't know if there is an answer really, but we're credit to him, I guess, for constantly trying something else the next season.
Yeah, RB, I totally agree with kind of your premise here that this is an absolute lose-lose spot. And to take it even a step further, the number one thing that people are going to say when he does go through this load management process is he isn't in good enough shape, or he should be playing more because his fitness level is too low. And for Joel specifically, I've always been a little sympathetic to that as well because, like, there's no doubt that he has not been in good enough shape or not been in NBA quality shape for stretches, but that's because he's been hurt for these same reasons. It's not like that you can be running suicides when you're out there resting up from a meniscus tear and things like that. So I understand there's things that he could do better with a lot of these regards. I'll also point out, like, Joel is one of the rare athletes in this day and age to very clearly take the villain arc, that he has turned heel to the fullest extent, that he wants to be the guy that opposing teams hate. And he's honestly tamed down from that from the early parts of his career where he was taking shots on Instagram and doing all the other nonsense to make sure that he was that type of villain role. So I think Joel kind of likes where he's at. I think it motivates him and he kind of would prefer to be the hated guy. Whatever gets you going, I don't care. The bottom line is you just got to produce when you're on the floor. And there is a lot of pressure on Joel Embiid this year that the excuses have run out. There's no doubt about that.
No, the excuses definitely have ran out. I mean, you have the best team that Joel Embiid has had, right?
Yeah.
It's not debatable. I mean, maybe like 2018 could be like arguable with this team, but in recent memory, I mean, this is the best team. I think with Joel Embiid, it's always that double standard. People just want to see him play during the postseason at a high level, especially Sixers fans, for sure. And I get it. I know the narrative last year was, oh, Embiid is gunning for that MVP. And you're gunning for that MVP so much that you went ahead and got injured. What was it, against Golden State that he got injured with? And it's like, hey, maybe he was gunning for it, or, maybe he wasn't and he could have got injured at like any other play. People saying the same thing with like a guy like Saquon Barkley. Oh, don't give him too many touches. It's like, look, sometimes you might get injured on like a freak play. You never know. Right? It's sports at the end of the day. It's sports. So I do think that it's a little bit overblown with Embiid. I understand like the criticism. I don't hate it. My whole thing is, my only issue with it is we want to see this team string together multiple wins together. I know like throughout the regular season, Nick Nurse is a great coach. They're going to be a top 5 seed or whatever, barring like a season ending injury or like Paul George or Embiid being out for like, more than 2 months or anything like that. They'll be a top 5 seed. The whole problem is that, like, all right, if we have Embiid who's out, for back-to-backs and he's in and out the lineup and Paul George is in and out the lineup, when are we going to have a squad that actually plays together before the playoffs start at full strength? That was the problem with the Clippers, because it was like, all right, you got Kawhi, you got Paul George, you got Russ, you got Reggie Jackson, you got all these guys. One of these guys going ahead and play together before the playoffs start. We didn't see that. And then Kawhi ends up playing like 2 games or however much during the postseason. And we saw how that went. So that's the biggest thing. We want to see this team play together, get that chemistry. Again, last point, same thing with the Phoenix Suns. It's like, all right, you have Kevin Durant, he's in and out. You got Bradley Beal, he was barely playing last season. And that contributed to them getting swept by the Timberwolves. One could argue if that Suns team actually had some continuity and they played together before the playoffs started for multiple games, maybe they would have lost that series, but it would have been, better than getting swept. So ultimately, I think that's the biggest concern is like, all right, how many games is this trio going to play? We know that, all right, Paul George probably isn't going to play in the opener. Is he going to play the first 5 games, whatever the case may be? We don't know yet. But that's the biggest thing. Can this trio string together games where they get that chemistry together? And ultimately, that's going to be something that if they have these championship aspirations, that's what's going to lead them to the chip.
Yeah, I mean, I agree they have to play games together. You know, they got to get everybody on the same page. But look at the last 2 to 3 years in the NBA playoffs. They've been strung with injuries and, you know, bad teams making their way to the second, third round because nobody's healthy anymore. And you know they're not going to cut the amount of games. So now the Sixers have proposed a plan to keep Joel Embiid hopefully healthy to the playoffs. I agree 100% with MJ. Sometimes there's just freak injuries. That's who Joel Embiid has been. He'll take an elbow to the face at the end of a playoff game that they've already won, or he'll get hit in his orbital bone by his own teammate. Doesn't matter. You can't take Joel out of Joel. Like, he has to play the way that he plays. He can't, you know, jump 10 feet in the air in November, but he is Joel Embiid. He's an MVP player. You can't really take a lot away from his game. So now the Sixers have constructed a plan to try to get him to the playoffs healthy, the same way that Nick Nurse got Kawhi Leonard to the playoffs healthy, and they went on a monstrous run and won a championship. So I just don't understand why people are frustrated. The regular season matters, but at the end of the day, you got to be on all cylinders come March and April heading into the playoffs, and you have to be healthy. Look at the teams that got to the dance last year. We talk about the Phoenix Suns too. I mean, they just didn't have a good supporting cast either. They weren't built right. This Sixers team is a bunch of dogs, man.
Yeah.
This is the best team, undebatable, that Joel Embiid has ever had. They got to get it done now. And if one of them gets hurt, it's going to be like, oh man, how do we assess this? Where do we go from here? How many times do we keep trying to run it back?
Yeah, I think it's frustrating for fans over the years, but there's so many teams over the years, it wasn't really interesting to watch when Joel Embiid wasn't playing. We you know, like the last thing I wanted to see was a Ben Simmons Tobias Harris game against the Memphis Grizzlies on a Tuesday night without Joel Embiid. It was horrible. And so we have Tyrese Maxey, and we get to watch Tyrese Maxey. And, you know, that's the bright spot in all of this. And if Paul George and Joel Embiid trade load managing back and forth all season and we get like the whole trio together for 11 games like the Brooklyn Nets that one year, 2021, maybe that is what happens. But we get to watch Tyrese Maxey every night. And also, I don't think people are talking about it enough. He averaged 37-4 against what I thought was the best defense in the league at the time, the New York Knicks last year in the playoffs. He averaged 30 in a playoff series against the Knicks. What's he going to do against the Hawks and the Wizards and the Pistons and the Kings and the Tyrese Maxey could go nuts this season, you know? So I as a fan, I'm just happy that it's still going to be entertaining no matter how many games these two guys are load managed. And MJ, when you referenced the Clippers, you know, that lucky for us, that team was full of all old injured guys, you know?
Yeah.
We have two kind of old injured guys, and then we have a lot that are 26, 27, 28 in their prime, and we have Tyrese Maxey. So, you know, the teams like that they were really taking a chance because everybody could be out. But I think it's balanced enough that the load managing Joel Embiid and Paul George won't kill the entertainment factor too much for us throughout the regular season. And yeah, just get him to the playoffs healthy, man. You know what? Put Joel Embiid in a freeze chamber until the round one starts. I literally don't care. If I see him try a chase down block on a Wednesday night in December, I'm going there and I don't know, man. You know what I mean? Like just dude, if he doesn't play a single game, I don't care. Get him to the playoffs healthy.
In the playoffs, man.
Keep him in a swimming pool doing exercises to stay in shape or something. I know basketball shape is different, but just get him to the playoffs healthy, please.
Yeah, and obviously, like, having the 3 stars and having, like, that trio in the playoffs is the biggest selling point for the Sixers team. There's no doubt. Having that top-end talent at a level that it has not been is a huge reason for optimism. But for me, like, I think there's such a great thing with having, like, you can win games in the non-Joel Embiid games when it's just Tyrese Maxey and Paul George, or it's just Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid and the off-night Paul George things. Like, this team was not going to take that nosedive on the days where Joel does not play it, as we've seen year in and year out. So I think that's going to be enough to hang in the standings. We've done the dance where you're trying to pick out your seed or pick your path, and that clearly has not worked for that team. For me, it's just avoid the play-in and then get ready for a war once the playoffs come. But I do think that's like a huge driving force for this team. And even beyond the 3 stars that I'm talking about, there will be a Reggie Jackson night. There will be a night where Eric Gordon hits 8 threes in a game or something crazy like that. There will be a Jared McCain night. Gershon Yabusele will have his moments. Like, there's a lot of like X factor players on this team, which I truly did not feel about with some of the previous rosters. You knew what you were getting from the Shake Miltons of the world or the guys that the Danny Greens of the world that were stepping in. This year, it feels like there is like this top end boost from a lot of the complementary players that I just did not see in years past that I'm thrilled about.
I'm thrilled about some of these X factors. Ricky Council, that's the guy I'm super high on. I know, like, hey, RB, we had the draft live show, and I know he was big on Dalton Connect. I'm looking like, hey,
still big on him though. I'm still big on
him. Hey, we got Ricky Council though, the 4th. And I'm expecting him. He ain't getting no minutes last year, but he was very efficient. Shot a phenomenal field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. I'm looking for him. If there's some nights that, look, Paul George isn't there, I'm looking for Ricky Council to go ahead, step up, and get those minutes in his absence. I'm looking for Andre Drummond. We know that when he was back with the Sixers a couple years ago, he was very effective. I know he makes some boneheaded plays. He has some Shaq in the full moments for sure. But ultimately, he's fighting for his NBA life. I mean, I know he's on a 2-year deal, but like, look, you're 31 years old. If you don't do 2-0 with the Sixers, you're looking like you're about to be either overseas or out the league. So Andre Drummond, he has to prepare himself to be like, all right, I'm going to be a starting center for the Sixers for multiple games, not even multiple, several games this year with Joel Embiid absent. So I'm expecting him to not be scared the moment, to go ahead and perform and rise to the occasion when that moment comes. Come on, Andre Drummond. We need you.
I'll be honest. I think outside of PG, I think Drummond was probably one of the biggest signings in the entire NBA this offseason. Like, I don't think people realize how freaking good Andre Drummond is. Like, he was wasted on the Bulls bench last year, dropping 20 rebounds in 15 minutes. Like, this guy's out here in the preseason grabbing 15 rebounds in 12 minutes. Andre Drummond can step in, especially with, we're talking about Embiid. If he's not playing, Drummond is capable of holding down the fort. We didn't have that last year. We didn't have that at all. And that's why Joel texted Daryl Morey and said, we need to do whatever it takes when I'm not playing to get this team right. Like, I'm frustrated, man. Get us to the playoffs healthy. And I think Daryl Morey cooked this offseason. So, all the guys MJ talks about, all these players, I mean, they got to step up. But all right, let's talk about the Sixers in general. I feel like we're all kind of high on the team, but what's the expectation this year? Is it championship or bust? In year one, with everybody together, a lot of things have to go right. Is this the year? How far do we think they can go? Like, how do they stack up? Sean, I'll start with you.
Yeah, for me, it's you got to make it past the second round this year. That's the barrier that I think needs to be broken. If we can win the Eastern Conference or at least go toe-to-toe with the Celtics, for me, that is an absolute win for the Sixers team. I'm still not as like championship or bust from the standpoint of we're still seeing Tyrese Maxey in an upward trajectory. And the power balance may be shifting a little quicker than we expected, as we will see what Joel Embiid has left in the tank. We will see what Paul George has left in the tank. But I'm still pretty optimistic that this leap from Tyrese Maxey is as legitimate as it comes. This is going to be a guy we're talking about as a real deal all-star for the foreseeable future for the rest of his career, and a guy that I do think will be capable of taking the baton as that 1A star in this Sixers organization in the long run. So I don't think it is that minimized of a window, but I do think this team has everything that it does need and the capabilities to get the things that it doesn't have at the deadline when that moment approaches. So for me, it has to be past the second round. It has to be the greatest success of Joel Embiid's career thus far. And honestly, that's how I see things going down, that I do think this team has checked the boxes it needed to and is built for that this season.
Sean, I'll take it a step further. I don't just want the Sixers to get past the second round. They better get to the Eastern Conference Finals and make it a series. If it's a 4-game sweep, if it's a 5-game non-competitive series, I'm gonna be pissed off
Sure.
because all right, yeah, Joel Embiid, Maxey, the Sixers team hasn't been in the conference finals in a long time, in a very, very long time. But I'm looking for them. If you face the Celtics, face the Bucks, really those two teams, because I still have a lot of respect for Giannis. I know the Bucks with Doc Rivers and all that, people not too high on them. I got respect for them. But if you make it competitive with the Celtics and the Bucks, especially if Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, they're all healthy in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm looking for it to be competitive. So again, I'm looking for the Eastern Conference Finals at least, and for it to go 6 games. 6 games.
I'm
Yeah, I think-
surprised, man.
I think
Go ahead.
if they're all healthy, the way, on paper, this is an Eastern Conference Finals team, and it will be a series. I don't see a possible way that Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and all of the role players that they signed healthy don't take the Celtics to 6 or 7 in an Eastern Conference Finals or beat the Celtics in an Eastern Conference Finals. Another thing about Celtics fans, Jimmy J, I see you. You still haven't found a Celtics podcast to hang out in. Thanks for being here. The thing about Celtics fans is they act like every year that team is totally unbeatable, and then they get in a first round 7-game series against the Hawks. They get in you know what I mean? That team
Don't let 'em see
is
the
just as beatable as they're stacked on paper, but they are very beatable. And I could see this Sixers team beating that Celtics team in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's how it just looks that good on paper. It just does.
You know why they're going to be scared of Philly? Because we have Caleb Martin now. We have Caleb Martin. X Factor, baby. Anyway, I'm surprised with you guys, man. Look, screw the Eastern Conference Finals, all right? I'm trying to get to the finals.
Love it.
It is now or never. If we get to the conference finals and we lose in 6 games or 5 games, what are we going to go through the whole process again? Well, we'll pick up some aging vets and we'll hope and pray everybody stays healthy. PG's going to be 35. Joel's going to be 31 with another year of wear and tear. Who knows what Maxey can do? It's finals or bust for me. This fan base, I think, is just expecting this team to kind of bottom out, but they need some hope in life, man. If we get to the conference finals, who knows when we'll get back? We need to go and make a run and go all the way. The Sixers can be the team this year. When I say the team, think of the last couple years, right? The Nuggets had their run. The Celtics last year. Even OKC, who I thought had a really good season. The Sixers got to be that team. Dominant from start to finish. They need to go all the way. I don't think a conference finals appearance does me any liking. I think they got to make the finals.
Is that what we think? It's a 1-year window?
I don't think it's a 1-year window, but I just think if they get to the conference finals and lose, I just think we're all at the same point again. Wonderful. They got to the conference finals. We could put it on Embiid's resume. Now they're going to say make the finals. I mean, based on all these teams getting injured, based on how the landscape has been, we don't even know if any team will be healthy come March and April and May. So all I'm saying is if the Sixers get hot and hope and pray that they have everybody on the floor with some of these tough vets they have, I think you got to go all in and make it happen. I think this is the year you have to do it. And I think Maxey's going to be a freaking MVP this year. So I think they have enough juice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you brought up Caleb Martin too, RB. That I do think that to me, while Paul George is obviously the apple of our eye and kind of the biggest superstar move, Caleb Martin's going to be the guy that I think becomes the fan favorite across the city of Philadelphia throughout the year. That dude is a certified dog and a certified Celtics killer. That we've seen him have his best moments when the lights have been the brightest. And even just thinking about it from a wider lens here, this is the first time that we've seen a modernized roster around Joel Embiid. That there's multiple switchable athletic wings that you can throw at opposing teams in a way that we've never had before. That Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, Paul George calling themselves the plumbers on their perimeter defense there. I love every bit about it, and I do think that perimeter defense aspect is something that's significantly lacked in past years, which particularly shows against teams like the Celtics that are built around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So there's Not obviously that you're going to go head to head with these guys, but there's better responses and answers that the Sixers team has on roster than we've seen in past years. Yabusele is another guy that I'll throw in the mix that I think can make an impact. And I do love that he's got that Celtics backstory as a little bit of a back pocket thing. That we took a Celtics guy who's hungry for his return and has looked very good thus far. So I love the optionality. I love the athleticism and feel very strongly that this is the most modern roster that we've seen or built around Joel Embiid.
And I want to add one more thing too, just to clarify. Sixers might not have Kelly Oubre next year. They might not have Eric Gordon. They might not have Kyle Lowry. They might not have Andre Drummond. So I just think Daryl Morey kind of orchestrated this entire project for everything to land in this spot in this season. And he said it himself. It's risky as hell. We might get to April again. And, we're hoping Joel comes back from injury and PG's been up and down. But if they get there healthy, if they get there as a full product, as what we are being promised, it's now or never. This team's got to get over the hump.
I agree. The urgency is there. I think you're more optimistic than I am. I think I have my expectations low so that, like, in the event, like, they don't meet expectations, I'm like, well, all I asked was the Eastern Conference Finals. And so I feel like I'm like, all right, as long as they get there. But you are right in terms of this is the championship window. I mean, it gets to a certain point. It's like, all right, Joel Embiid, you're over 30 years old. You have all these injuries.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't win this year, next year is probably the last, because after next year, then you're talking about, all right, well, Paul George is 36. Again, Maxey's still going to be there, but now you're talking about, all right, let's retool. And I'm still a big. Even last year, I was like, I would like for this team to be built around Tyrese Maxey, because he's the guy who is going to be in there game in, game out during the regular season, during the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going, again, I love Joel Embiid. Obviously, he is, when healthy, a top 5 player. But if you're looking at who you build this team around, do you build the team around a guy who you don't know if he's going to be there, or do you build a team around a young guy who is ascending to become a superstar and he's going to be there, barring a freak injury, talking about night in, night out. So I completely agree with that sentiment. I'm more, I guess, pessimistic than you that they will go ahead and do it. But that is what the overall message is like, you have to maximize this window. You talk about trust the process. Well, now all them years, look, I'm a grad student. When I was in middle school, we was trash. In middle school, early high school, we was trash. Then, Jimmy Butler era, and the Kawhi shot, all right, like we had our chance, and then we had the whole 2021. I was a sophomore in college, and then the Ben Simmons missing he didn't miss, but he didn't even attempt the shot over Trae Young. All them years, yes, it was traumatizing, all that stuff. Up 3-2 against the Celtics with James Harden, Joel Embiid, they lay an egg. So been through all of it. I understand there is urgency, but I'm more pessimistic than you are, B. But again, I'm hoping make it a series, and we never know what's going to happen, because I don't trust that guy Jason Tatum. And I don't trust him. What is he about to do? Again, I know you dropped 50 on us. The one he had a crazy 50, game 6.
Game 7.
Crazy game 6. But that was when we gave him the game. I mean, it was like the Celtics were giving us the game at Wells Fargo, giving us the game.
That's my
thing.
And
then Tatum was like, all right, if y'all not going to take it, I'm going to take it from y'all.
And that's my thing. That's my thing. I think a lot of people are saying, well, this is just year 1 of the PG project. But in reality, how many opportunities have we blown to get here? We should have been in the conference finals 4 times, 3 times by now. So I think we do need to put that pressure on this team. They need to do it. It's now or never.
Yeah, I think first of all, let's get the likes up here, man. Let's get 100 likes on the stream, man. Everybody hit the like button. Everybody that's been hanging out, thanks for hanging out here, man. Everybody get the likes up. I think Daryl Morey's the kind of guy that flips things. He doesn't wait around too long. You know what I mean? So if you look at his career, that's why he's never had I don't think he's ever had a losing season as a GM. He's always at least getting a team into contention, whether what he does works or not. You know, the James Harden, Russell Westbrook in Houston type of stuff, whether these things work out or, Chris Paul got hurt against the Warriors, things like that. But he's always has a team there. And then he flips it as soon as he can, as soon as he sees, he's usually ahead of the curve. So yeah, like if you say they don't, say they do go the next 2 years and don't win a championship, Daryl Morey's not going to hang out until the end of that Joel Embiid extension and the end of the Paul George contract and all that stuff. He's going to get in the books and start making things happen. At least you have a guy like that who, over the course of his career, is going to regroup and take another swing at something else sooner than later. And again, whether, like he said, it was risky. So whether or not what he does works out or not, you have a guy that's going to continue to try. And again, thank the basketball gods that we have Tyrese Maxey. And what do you guys think the next leap is for Tyrese Maxey? You know what I mean? I've seen some playmaking in the preseason that I don't think I've seen before from him. The pick and roll drives, throwing lobs behind his head to Andre Drummond. I've never seen Tyrese Maxey throw lobs like that off a pick and roll. So if Tyrese Maxey's even adding those type of point guard capabilities to the scoring ability he already has, he could be really, 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 really good and hard to stop.
He's going to be incredible this year. First off, real quick, shout out to Brian, $5 super chat. He says, I'm not worried about the Celtics. Y'all know how much emotional damage the Olympics did to Gibson Tatum. Steve Kerr is a funny dude. I'm not worried about the Celtics. I'm not worried about the Knicks. I think the Sixers are coming for the money this year. To Eastwood's point, let's go around with each one hot take for the season. I've been saying mine for about a month and a half now, so I'm just going to tell you guys before this season starts. Hopefully we'll do this every week and see how these play out. And now I'm hoping it's not for the wrong reason, but my hot take for this season is that Tyrese Maxey is a top 15 player in the NBA and he gets at least a few MVP votes. I think he's going to be that good. I mean, Eastwood just talked about how good he looks as a playmaker already. There was a play yesterday where he breaks down a defender one-on-one, pull up midi. It looked like he was in year 8 of his career. Like, he looks that good. He's only 23 years old. And we saw what this team could do when they gave him the keys in the Knicks series. I hope there is games this year where Joel says, yo, I don't have to put up 47, 12, and 8 to win. Let me just take a back seat. Let me let Maxey do the work. I think Tyrese Maxey is going to make a name for himself to a different degree this year. I think he's going to be incredible. That's my hot take.
I like it. I'll build off it a little bit. That I think we see a career year in Joel Embiid's playmaking this year. That I think as much as we talk about who holds the keys of the offense, I think there's a world where this is pretty fluently fits together. That there's a lot of Paul George and Tyrese Maxey running off screens and using motion, with Joel being a little bit more of a playmaker. That I think he's embracing the Nikola Jokic-like style of offense to an extent. He's clearly seeing the postseason success that he has had and is hungry for that as well. And I think that there is like a world where this all kind of melts together. And my other thing that I'll bring up, Paul George specifically here, I think is in the perfect role for him now. That I think the critiques of Paul George in the past applied to him as a number 1 or a number 2 option. I think on this Sixers team, he just has to be Paul George. Like, for all this talk about him as like a playoff faller, last year averaged 19.5 and 6.8 rebounds, 4.8 assists. The year before, 26.9 points per game, 9.6 rebounds, 5.4 assists. Like, that is something that I give me that out of anybody not named Joel Embiid, and I'm bending over backwards thanking you for the Sixers team. So I think there's still a little bit of underselling just how impactful Paul George can be, but I do think ultimately the offense shifts to Joel being a little more playmaking friendly this year.
I'm looking at Jared McCain.
Love
I'm
it.
surprised we ain't talked about him yet. I'm looking at him. I'm being like, all right. I'm surprised the Sixers got you that late in the draft. I thought you would be maybe top 10. I didn't think you would even, creep into that top 15, top 16 category. But we got you. We got you. What you have shown in the summer league, some lobs to Adam Bona. I mean, look, his playmaking has impressed me. His shooting. That guy is a shooter. Jared McCain is a shooter, one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter in the draft. I expect him, it's my hot take, to by the end of this season, Jared McCain is gonna be our Lou Williams. Y'all remember what Lou Williams was?
Oh yeah,
That 6-man.
lemon pepper Lou.
That 6-man off the bench. He was everybody talks about Jamal Crawford. Hey, that was Lou Williams for us. So I'm looking at Jared McCain, especially if there are some injuries, to the starting lineup. A guy like Jared McCain, he's gonna step up. And him and Tyrese Maxey, I know it might not be the best defensive duo, but offensively, oh my gosh, you got some sharpshooters right there, and they're gonna cause some havoc. I got high expectations for Jared McCain. I think he will show out and be one of those guys, be one of those top rookies in his rookie season.
Let's go, man. Jared McCain hype in the chat. Eastwood.
Yeah, I guess my hot take is kind of what I've been saying all summer too. That Tyrese Maxey's gonna emerge as a 1A, 1B type of player. We weren't aware over the summer, or we just didn't really think about it enough, that Paul George and Joel Embiid might be load managed a lot. So that even takes that to the next level. Tyrese Maxey is going to have a lot of opportunities to lead the team in scoring. And again, what he did against the Knicks, if he just picks up where he left off and he adds that, I think his playmaking is advancing. I think his defensive ability is advancing. My hot take just a couple months ago was Tyrese Maxey is going to be on MVP list. And if there's 40 games without Joel and whatever, Tyrese Maxey can definitely be on MVP lists this season. I think he's that good. And the rest of the NBA world still seems like they don't know that yet. And they're going to find out this season. And I want to give you my opinion on Jared McCain. Jared McCain's impressed the hell out of me. I think it's a dynamic or I don't know what word I'm looking for, but Jared McCain combined with Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry looking on their 1 foot in retirement. I think Jared McCain can play a big role in this team just from what I've seen from him in the preseason. His physicality has impressed me a lot at his size, man. He's low center of gravity, big, strong legs. He gets under the rim. He took Derek White to the rim twice in that preseason game, body to body contact, and finished over, through one of the best defenders in the game. And he did it again in the Atlanta Hawks series. He gets real, and he seems like he likes it. Like he seems like he's searching out contact, and that that makes me happy about the future for Jared McCain. But I think Jared McCain can probably end up playing a role in this team because Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry are looking like corpses out there.
Yeah. I own quite a bit of Jared McCain stock myself. That I've been a fan of this guy entering the draft and happy that he ended up on the Sixers. But I've been even more impressed seeing him in an actual NBA setting here. And the number one word that jumps out to me is fearless. The dude does not care about the moment. He's taking guys. The Derek White example is a perfect one of that. Is one of the premier defenders across the entire league, and he did not blink whatsoever. In fact, he sought him out. He saw that one-on-one matchup and said, I can take this. And then he did. And I do think the shooting in the short term is how he makes his impact felt. That I do really feel that this guy is going to be a high-level elite caliber shooter by NBA standards, a 40% plus three-point shooter throughout most of his career here. I expect that to be the case, and that's going to be kind of his day one. But there's more to him than just that. So I'm a big fan of kind of the developmental arc for players where you put one thing on their plate, gradually add more and more. I think that's going to be the case with McCain this year, that he kind of starts off as a spot-up shooter. Then all of a sudden there's some opportunities where he's running a little bit of offense. He's playmaking for others. And all of a sudden we're talking about this guy as a bigger piece of the puzzle for the Sixers team than a lot of us expected. So I'm excited to see how it plays out, but I definitely think he's going to be a guy in the mix this season.
Yeah, isn't it crazy that Jared McCain is 6'3" and 20 years old and is a better finisher through contact than Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, a lot of other guys. It's just
Melton.
Oh God, we've just seen guys shy away from contact for so many years, like Euro step fadeaway, flicking it off the top of the rim. Go at somebody, and that kid does it. So I love that.
Love the word fearless, man. Shout out to everybody in here. First edition of the Sixers Therapy Show. If you guys are tapping in, if you're here from episode 1, let us know in the chat. Give us your thoughts. Couple final things, man. Because somebody was just in the chat talking about Jared McCain and the fit. I think we all liked Jared McCain's game, but the question was, does he fit the win now mentality? And to that, I ask all of you, is this going to be the final version of the Sixers roster? Yeah, they'll make a couple moves here and there. Are they going to make one more big trade? So let's just go around and predict. They have KJ Martin as a trade chip. This team still doesn't really have a power forward. I mean, we're excited, but this team's had rebounding issues. I think Daryl Morey is going to cash in and get the final piece to the puzzle at the deadline. I think he's going to get an aggressive rebounder that can defend. And I think from there, we're going to the moon, baby. Sixers are completing this year's project, process, whatever you want to call it. And I think the Sixers have one more move in store. The Knicks can't do that. Celtics can't do that. Sixers can.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think there's another move at the deadline. I think the KJ Martin contract is as strategic as it could be. And I also like the biggest thing to me about Paul George officially coming to the Sixers. We talked all about the fit. We talked all about what he brings to this team, but you didn't have to dig into any of your assets to bring him. It was straight up Daryl Morey writing a check and Paul George signing it. This is not a situation like the Knicks, who had to give up 6 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges or trade a boatload to get Karl Anthony Towns. The Sixers still have those waiting around that you can now take a look at what this team needs, then identify that, and then go out and get it. So I think Daryl Morey is going to be active. To me, that's one of the biggest advantages that the Sixers team has, that they aren't all in at this current moment when you look at the assets. So I think another move comes, and I think it probably will be sort of for that power forward type player, even though I'm not as – I guess I'm not as high as on that being as a concern as I think a lot of people are.
Power forwards, Kyle Kuzma. I'm looking at him. He's a floor spacer. Hey, look, the Wizards are gonna be trash. We already know how they are. They're gonna be bad. And so, as the season wanes and the Wizards realize, all right, like we're not gonna be anything. Let's just go ahead and repurpose Kyle Kuzma, try to see if we can go ahead and flip him, get some more assets, maybe a first round pick. He'll demand the Wizards will demand a first round pick for him. Kyle Kuzma is a guy that I want the Sixers to just keep their eyes on in terms of just being a floor spacer, a guy who can rebound. He came off a strong season with the Wizards, and he's been productive with them. Obviously, they haven't won any games, but he's shown with the Lakers. All right, if you put him in a good system, he can be a very good contributor on a championship winning team. That's a guy who I'm looking to there. I think, Kelly Oubre, he might be a trade piece. We saw that he had a really a great season, phenomenal season off a veteran minimum contract last year. And so he's going to go off of that. I know that he ended up getting a deal this offseason. So Kelly Oubre might be a guy. That's pretty, KJ Martin, maybe one of the young guys like a Ricky Council. I know, like when Jared McCain first got drafted, I thought that he was gonna be immediately a trade piece. Maybe that's not out the window, but I it's kind of like the whole Cavs situation when LeBron came, and I thought, all right, when Andrew Wiggins didn't even play a game, they went ahead and traded him for Kevin Love. I thought it was going to be a situation like that where it was like Jared McCain might not play a game and they might trade him for, another asset. They're like a 3-and-D or, another power forward or something like that. Because like you said, RB, we do need a power forward. I do like Busele, but if we can get, I'm high on him, but we all know how overseas players play for their international team versus playing in the NBA. So I'm gonna still just have my reservations there. But again, I'm looking at if we're gonna make it trade Kelly Oubre, he's probably my number one guy that he could be on the trade market if we're looking to make a splash, in addition to pairing him with, a first or a couple second round picks.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I like that you brought up Kyle Kuzma. I was talking about him all summer, and he's a 6'8", 6'9", can do basically a little bit of everything on the basketball court. And Kyle Kuzma is just a guy that needs motivation. You can definitely see when he gets stuck in a place like Washington or or isn't happy with what's going on with the team, he'll just kind of coast through a season and really look like he doesn't care that much. But there has been times in his career where when he looks locked in and looks like he wants to win, or it looks like he's motivated because he's on a team that has a chance to win, you can get a lot out of Kyle Kuzma. And a plug and play kind of guy, can catch and shoot, can shoot off the dribble. So I like the Kyle Kuzma idea. Dorian Finney-Smith is still being held captive by the Brooklyn Nets, I believe. They're definitely going to trade him. I really think Daryl Morey tried to get him before the trade deadline, and that's part of the reason the KJ Martin contract ended up getting to where it got, because the salary cap, he was doing salary cap tricks, and at the trade deadline, I think Dorian Finney-Smith makes like 15 or something. It would be some salary cap gymnastics, but I would love that as a trade. But I think KJ Martin definitely gets traded. That's the whole reason he's getting paid, that kind of money. I know he wrote like some kind of thank you thing on Instagram when he signed the contract. Does he really think he's an $8 million player? He knows what happened, right?
He knows. He knows.
But hey, it's like winning the lottery for a guy like that. I'll take 16 mil so you guys can trade me. So, but yeah, I definitely think that happens before the trade deadline.
There was a guy on the Suns, I forget who it was, maybe Josh Okogie, who was in the same boat this offseason. Like, imagine being a player that gets way above what you're worth just to be a trade chip. It's like, all right, well, I'll try to buy in. KJ got a shooting coach this offseason. I'm trying to buy in. But
do you feel like his shot is better? Because Nick Nurse said his shot is better, and I've been watching him in the preseason, and he still doesn't look like he can shoot a basketball.
I feel like I haven't seen him shoot. I feel like he's just, playing.
He shot one from the corner last night and it hit off the side of the backboard, not even close, wide open.
I'm more confident in what I've seen out of Yabu knocking down threes in the preseason. I'm not too confident yet, but either way, he's getting paid. And look, I hope he plays incredible. I hope KJ Martin becomes the comeback player of the year and then gets flipped at the deadline for an incredible power forward. I've said it since last year. The Sixers need an Aaron Gordon for Joel Embiid. Like, they need that player. If they get that player, they're winning the chip.
I love Yabusele because he's big, he's physical, and he has something to prove. He has a chip on his shoulder, and that's a guy. A lot of guys on this team finally are guys that are going to go out there, and for a fact they're going to leave 110% on the floor. They're out there in the preseason diving for loose balls. Caleb Martin chased down block on the rookie in Atlanta last night, almost started a fight. The Atlanta Hawks ran off the bench. That's the kind of player I want. Start a fight in a preseason game, please. That's the kind of energy I want, and we finally got it. But I think Yabusele is going to struggle defensively because he doesn't really. He's already kind of fouling guys and looking at refs like, what the hell did I do? Because he's been playing in the EuroLeague for so long, where incidental contact is kind of ignored, and in the NBA they're like, hey, listen, man, you touched that guy's shoulder on the whatever. So I think he's going to struggle with fouls until he gets used to the officiating. But yeah, I'm high on Yabusele too, man.
I think you hit it right there, man. The team's likable for once. Like, this is just a likable group. Every guy on his team I want to go to war for. Kelly, scrapping with the official in a preseason game. Caleb trying to fight the bench of the Hawks. Like, this team wants to win, man. They are scrappy, and I think they're going to be great this year. Two things I want to dispel real quick. I'm seeing a ton in the chat saying we should get Simmons back to play power forward. No. And also I'm seeing let's get
There's always one, man. There's always one.
There's multiple in the chat. And then another thing, which has actually been popping up on Twitter for me as well. People are saying, let's move Embiid to the 4 and play Drummond. No, it's not happening. Andre Drummond is one of the best backup centers in the league. Let's keep it that way. And Joel is the center of the Philadelphia 76ers. So,
dude, they were saying that we need to move Joel to the 4 and play Mo Bamba at center last year. So, there's always some wild stuff going on in the chat.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. All right, let's end it off. Since this is our kind of Sixers season expectation show, let's just give our win prediction. Like, how many wins will the Sixers get in 2024 in the regular season, barring that they're primarily healthy? Miles, I'll start it with you.
How many games? I feel like...
How many wins?
How many
and
wins?
What seed as well?
Definitely top 3 seed. Definitely top 3 seed. I would say that the Sixers win 52 games. 52 games. Tyrese Maxey goes ahead and, ups his level to, an even higher echelon. And be optimistic in Paul George and Joel Embiid play around 55 games, 60 games. And Tyrese Maxey, Jerry McCain, and everybody else, Caleb Martin, they propel us to 52. So I'm gonna say 52 games, and we'll be a number 3 seed.
AR in the chat said letting Mo Bamba go was a huge mistake.
Remember when they first signed him, dude?
Too. Yeah.
Dude, when they first signed him, and I watch basketball, but I don't watch it like every single night like some of these guys. I don't watch every team every night, and I still knew that Mo Bamba was absolutely trash.
It was the summer of centers, man. Trez, Bamba, B-ball Paul. We brought everybody back, so that was an interesting couple of months there. Sean, what's your win total prediction and seed prediction for the season?
So Sixers won 47 games last year, which they finished as the 7th seed. Embiid's injury largely due to that. I believe they're over-under sitting at 54.5 for this year. I do think they go under that total for this. But when looking at it, there were 2 teams that won 50-plus games last year in the conference, the Knicks and the Celtics. I do think the Sixers join that list. I'm going to lock it in at 51 wins this season. I think that ends at least the top 4 seed. I'm totally cool with that. For me, it's stay out of the play-in. And just win as many games as possible and then load up for war come playoff time. So sign me up for 51 wins in the top 4 seed.
Yeah, mine's a hot take. Look, the Sixers fell apart when Embiid got injured last year, and I saw a comment early on in this stream that said Tyrese Maxey can't win without Joel Embiid. His record's terrible without Joel Embiid. His running mate was Tobias Harris and a guy that Daryl Morey signed at the end of the offseason, like Kelly Oubre, who I think it was like, like you didn't think he was. Those were the guys, and you had Paul Reed suddenly couldn't get a rebound. It just ended up not being that good of a roster outside of Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And so that they're just so much deeper this year. And Tyrese Maxey, if he continues what he did in the Knicks series, and I see the Sixers 58 wins, 2 seed over the New York Knicks fans. And I'm also predicting that the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown get in a fist fight at some point in the season. The Celtics completely implode and somebody requests a trade.
Wow. I love it, man.
I want to say this, though, to the Celtics fans in the chat. I've never seen somebody win a championship and looks kind of like he doesn't enjoy the celebrations. Like I saw from Jason Tatum, because Jason Tatum wants to be known as a number 1 NBA superstar. And you could tell he's a little bit frustrated that his team was stacked. He didn't play that well. They still won. So it was kind of like Kevin Durant with the Warriors celebrating, but like, yeah, dude, am I really that happy about it or whatever? You know what I mean? So yeah, I think there's gonna eventually be some jealousy issues going on with the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
Well,
they're lucky they won the championship because the Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum stuff was really pushing into before that. I do wonder if that comes back on full display. Both those guys are going to be hungry based on this offseason, with Brown being left off the Olympics, Tatum being benched to the Olympics, and everything else that went down. But yeah, there's a lot going on in that Celtics locker room. I think a little bit more than being acknowledged.
Yeah, and I think, again, they took advantage of the opportunity to win at the perfect time. I mean, look at who they were playing. They played the Pacers to get to the finals. I mean, not the Knicks, not the Sixers, the Pacers. And look, shout out to TJ McConnell, but the Magic can only go so far. You know what I mean? So Eastwood had me beat. I said 56 wins and the 2 seed. So I'm going to give you a couple hot takes on top of it. I think the Milwaukee Bucks fire Doc Rivers midseason.
They would be paying 3 coaches' salaries then, I think.
That might be 4. I think it's
4.
That might be 4.
Yeah.
Doc.
I think Doc's on. Nobody has talked about the Bucks. I think Lillard is on the verge of being washed, and I think Doc Rivers will implode that team. So I think Doc gets fired. I think either the Orlando Magic or Indiana Pacers end up as a top 3 seed, and I think the Thunder make the finals in the West. I think the East is not that strong. Like, looking up and down, the Heat are a make or miss.
Boston.
Boston's there. They brought their whole damn team back. The Knicks, if one player gets injured on the Knicks, they cannot upgrade the team. And I think the Sixers brought in all the right chess pieces. So Sixers 2 seed, 56 wins. They get to the finals against the OKC Thunder. That's my prediction.
Love it.
And somebody in the chat, where'd they say? I missed the comment. Somebody said we're going 74-8. So shout out to you.
Love it.
How do you
All
feel about the Knicks? How do you feel about the Knicks with the Karl Anthony Towns addition?
That's soft.
I'll give my quick take. I think the Knicks got better in the trade, but they lost their toughness in Dante DiVincenzo. I want to put it on the record. I am a Dante DiVincenzo stan again. I'm a Nova guy. Shout out to Dante. He was going at Rick Brunson the other night. He hates the Knicks. I don't think the T-Wolves made a good decision.
He's in Minnesota, dude. Of course he's mad. He's in Minnesota, man.
I'm not a believer in Julius Randle. I think if the T-Wolves would have got rid of Gobert, I think they would have been a really good team. They went to the conference finals for the first time in how long? And then they decide to make a big move. But Cat will make the Knicks better, but they lost Dante. They lost part of their toughness.
Yeah, but they added Mikal Bridges, though.
And I like Bridges. However,
I'll take Bridges over Dante.
However, if they get injured, like they traded 6 first rounders for Bridges. They traded the rest of it for Cat. They have nothing. They can't. They're strapped. So I think the Knicks are in a very stressful situation too. Similar to Philly. Like they have to win now. And if they don't, then Brunson will be flopping all the way back to home in the offseason.
To be honest, I have questions about each one of these guys within the role. Can Jalen Brunson truly be a number 1 on a championship team? I don't think so. Name me the last 6'3" or below guard that has been the primary creator on a championship team. You're gonna have to go back quite a bit. Karl Anthony Towns, can he be a number 2 on a championship team? I don't really think so to that either. Can Mikal Bridges be a number 3? I'm probably most confident about that. I mainly was looking at this this roster as him having to be the 2, which I doubted pretty heavily. And OG Anunoby, if you want to talk injury prone here, that guy hasn't played 50 seemingly his whole NBA career. We saw it on full display last year. The biggest thing to me is I just feel like there's so much on Jalen Brunson's plate. He's still going to have to be the guy that creates for everyone on that team. While Karl Anthony Towns is an offensive weapon, he's a catch and shoot guy. He's a space the floor guy. He doesn't do a ton as far as creation ability. He did a little bit more last year and kind of was forced to with Gobert. I'm more on RB's side that I think they're so short-sighted and so focused on this has to be the core. This has to.
Oh, did Sean freeze?
Someone in the chat said
somebody nuked him. The Knicks fan took him out.
Somebody in the chat said it was crazy about my Cat take. Look, man, if you think Rudy Gobert is better than Cat, then you are smoking. I'm sorry, Rudy Gobert
stinks, dude. He's the most overrated NBA player I've ever seen.
I like Naz Reid, I really do, and I understand if they made it on the precipice of that decision, but Rudy Gobert stinks. He stinks. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sean's back.
Yeah, Sean, you froze. We didn't hear the end of what you said, really.
Oh, hi. Well, I cut out. I'm basically saying kind of skeptical of it fully fitting together, and just I return to Jalen Brunson is going to have to be incredibly elite. And when you watch Jalen, who's terrific, that's the guy that I have the least amount of doubt as far as from a talent capacity. But the workload for what's on his shoulders is so much. And every single, when you watch him score a bucket, this is not Steph Curry flying around screens and shooting open threes. This is him getting in the paint, pivoting, basically playing as a post player, as a 6'3" guard. I just question the shelf life from that for a long-term standpoint. And every bucket looks so hard on him. It's just a lot for Jalen Brunson that I question how sustainable that is.
But didn't the addition of Mikal Bridges and Cat take some of that off of his shoulders? Because last year, they were tough, but really he was the only star level player on the team. You know what I mean? So he had a bunch of number 3s, really, even. So I think they took some of that off his plate. I'm probably higher on the Knicks team than you guys are. I don't like Knicks fans, but realistically, I'm looking at the team, and I think the Knicks got better.
I do too. I
Yeah,
do think they got better.
their whole identity. The thing that really confused me was the fact that you trade all those draft picks to bring Mikal Bridges to the Knicks with the whole purpose. I don't care what they say. The whole purpose was to bring the Villanova Knicks together. And then you trade away Dante DiVincenzo before y'all even play a game. That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, look, Karl Anthony Towns, yes, all-star player, all-star caliber player, one of the best shooting big man, of all time, for sure. Maybe the best. I know he proclaimed himself as the best, but he's definitely like one of the elite shooting big man, to ever play the game. But like RB said, it's something about that toughness. When I saw that video of Dante DiVincenzo saying, "This what y'all get when you run the show talking about tips," something about that was like, oh, they done messed up. That's some guy that, do I expect a guy like Karl Anthony Towns to hit a go-ahead three-pointer in game 2 of the playoffs against the Sixers? No, I don't, but I fear Dante DiVincenzo. I mean, he was a guy I was rooting for in high school at Villanova. He was hooping. I mean, talking about national championship, all the chips on the line in that Final Four. He was the guy that delivered. It wasn't the other guys. He was the MVP. So I'm very high on Dante DiVincenzo. I think that, he's a championship level role player that they missed. And it's that toughness. And if you're talking about guys on the Sixers, Yabusele, and he's at a point where it's like, if he doesn't pan out with the Sixers, he probably won't get invited back to the NBA again. It's like his one chance. He got that dog in him. Caleb Martin got that dog in him. I mean, we got several. Kelly Oubre got that dog in him. So we got several guys that got that dog in him. We needed that toughness. And I think that the Sixers have that edge. Can't sneeze at Mikal Bridges. But what's up with his shot, though? I mean,
He did. His shot looks funky right now.
it's a little bit funky. You go see, though.
Yeah, man. And somebody else mentioned Hartenstein. I think that's, another guy to the toughness factor. They lost. He goes to OKC. I mean, OKC is absolutely loaded, and they still have like 57 draft picks. So, yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. But who would you take right now, Sixers or Knicks? Like
Sixers comfortably to me.
Healthy Sixers, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd take the Sixers still.
I have 2 more anti-Knicks takes to get off here. So for starters, I just love when looking at the Sixers, like philosophically here, it's the perfect structure of building from a true guard, a true wing, and a true big man.
There they go.
Dude, the Knicks are taking him out, man. Every time he talks about the Knicks, it freezes up.
I think Paul George said, I'll just talk before, Sean gets back on, but it's never been a situation where Paul George has had a point guard of Tyrese Maxey's caliber and a big man. It's either been one or the other. And he's never had a big man like Joel Embiid, but y'all let you keep going.
Mm-hmm. My fault. Yeah, the Knicks are cutting my Wi-Fi here, I guess. But,
Luke and Sean, man.
But I love just the Sixers being built as a trio of a true guard, a true wing, and a true big man. To me, I still think that's the best way to build a team in the modern NBA. Now, as far as this Knicks team, for starters, Rick Brunson's got a weird case. Why is he around? A little confused by the over defense of Brunson, who's got quite the history if you want to dig into that. And the Karl Anthony Towns thing, like, we just kind of accept it as fact that he's the best big man shooter ever, when I just don't think that's the case. Like, the dude shot 36.6% from 3 the season before last year. It's like, yes, he's a good shooter, a very good shooter, a guy who is tall, but you're telling me this guy can go pound for pound with Dirk Nowitzki or Kevin Durant if you want to throw him in this conversation? Because, like, Karl Anthony Towns has just basically talked himself into that role, but I don't think the stats quite back that up. So I see that a lot. I hear that a lot. I just kind of still push back on that being the case.
If both teams are healthy, Sixers and Knicks, who's really guarding Joel Embiid? I mean, he's dominating Karl Anthony Towns. I think he averages 30 on who they call the block nest monster, Mitch Robinson. think he averages 30 on Mitch Robinson in a couple games in his career. Yeah, no, Joel healthy is dropping 50 on both of those guys.
Think about how far the Sixers took them without Paul George and without Caleb Martin and without these guys. Imagine what they can do with them. Last thing I want to say about the Knicks thing is, we talk about the Sixers. They got embarrassed by the Hawks. They got embarrassed by the Celtics, the Heat. Knicks lost by 21 on their home floor to the Indiana Pacers. Does anybody on the Pacers really fear you? Like, they came together as a good young team. Did they fear you? Like, did they scare you? No, not really. That team went into the Garden in Game 7 and whooped them. That's all I got to say.
I guess we didn't even mention OG Anunoby when talking about the Knicks. Did we just assume that he's going to be hurt the whole season too?
Pretty much. I another guy that, like, to me is like, he's a good role player. I don't think he's more than that, and they paid him to be a lot more than that. Like, I don't see a world where OG Anunoby is never an all-star caliber player. I also don't see him ever being like a sustainable like creator for his own offense. He's kind of a catch and shoot 3 guy who can defend very well, which is a great role to have, very important on a team, but they're paying the dude $40 million plus on a year-by-year basis. Like, that's just felt like a lot to me at the time and still does now, especially when considering the addition of Bridges.
And yes, in the chat, Ben Simmons put Karl Anthony Towns in a headlock. Nobody forget that. The one aggressive move of Ben Simmons' career.
The one time he showed some heart.
Hey, at least he backed up his teammate, man. Can't say the same for everybody.
It's true.
Yeah, so I'm excited for the season, man. Shout out to everybody on the panel. Shout out to the chat. If you enjoyed the first episode, let us know down in the comments. Hopefully we get to do this every single week. Sure, we'll have a lot more to talk about. I mean, next week we'll be back the day before game number 1. Maybe we'll have an update as to whether PG is going to play. Maybe they'll milk it out till like 6:30 p.m. Be like, yeah, he's questionable. Maybe not. Is that game even home or away? I don't even know.
Those Josh Harris moves, man. He wants everyone to show up to the arena. Don't tell him until the tip off.
Josh Harris is cooking right now, though. The Commanders.
Hey, that quarterback looks nice.
Does Josh, final hot take here. Does Josh Harris care more about the Commanders than the 76ers right now?
Is there more money? Is there more TV money in the NFL? Probably.
Yeah.
Nah, he's all in on the Sixers. I mean, not the Sixers, the Commanders. Yeah,
Crazy.
Yeah, he already made his profit on the Sixers. He don't care about the Sixers.
Oh my goodness.
They quadrupled it. They bought the Sixers for $500 million. It's worth like 3 Bs. He doesn't care. He made his money. He's not. Owners aren't here to win. They're here to make money.
Here to make that cheese.
Yeah. Hey man, it's the year of the first apron though. Feels like he's finally ready to spend some money. So
I don't believe that.
you think they're gonna duck the tax again?
Dude, remember last year? That's the reason they re-signed Montrezl Harrell. It saved him $700,000.
That was before all
because he had a player option, and then he tore his ACL. Oh my god!
Speaking of which, shout out to Sixers legend got traded yesterday, Jalen McDaniels, a former trade deadline tax cut. Shout out to Jalen McDaniels. I don't even know what team he got traded to, but
he got traded.
He got traded yesterday. Is Matisse Thybulle still in the league? Is he still play?
Still hanging out there in Portland.
Yep. There's still Sixers fans that say we need to bring him back. Yep.
All right, man. Shout out to Sixers Therapy. Shout out to everybody in the chat. This is the year, man. We're getting it done. It all starts next week. Hope and pray PG's back in no time. Guys, thanks for hopping on, man. It's a lot of fun.
Dude, it's a blast. I want to do it every week. I'm down, man.
Absolutely.
Come on, man.